everybody, welcome back to BnB Anime. I am Blue. Brad is below me today on my screen, but...
well, it's the opposite of what we had last week.
So, Brad is around in some direction.
I am round. That is a correct statement.
And I got me a matcha today. What you drinking?
I have Pepsi Zero.
Nice.
And now it's already almost gone. Ooh.
But today we're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, we broke convention because, I mean, why not? It's our show, damn it.
Yeah, and while we're like nerds, we are also like nerds, you know? So like,
yeah,
like we like anime shit, but we also fall down other rabbit holes at times. And one of the rabbit holes that we fell down many a time is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, you see, it's one of those things to where, as streamers, content creators, you know, the whole 9 yards, if there's one thing that could not escape either of our grasps at some point in our lives, it was Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah. I've streamed most of the games. I've played pretty much all of them. I think the only one I didn't play was Security Breach, and that's because I was like, fuck it, I'll watch Markiplier play it. So... But yeah, outside of that, I've played pretty much all the games. So I figured, you know what? Let's branch out a little bit. Let's diversify. Do something different.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, like, nerd culture. Nerd culture is very vast, and we all have our little areas. But I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's expanded all of them because it was in fanfiction nerd culture. It was in, it's like in science and robotics nerd culture. It's in like spooky movie lore. Like it's in you get the what are those guys that do the deep voices and they read scary stories online, like on YouTube and stuff. It got those guys. Like Five Nights at Freddy's expanded every nerd culture I can possibly think of. There was fan art of it. There was anime drawings of the characters, like manga drawings of the characters. Like, it was so vast, and then went mainstream, and they were like selling the toys at Toys R Us and stuff, and that was blowing my mind because I was like, this is a horror game. Like, okay.
Yep. God, I remember whenever they first came out with that first line of adorable plushes that they were selling at GameStop, and I was like, I'm a buy it.
Yeah.
Like, the games are subpar horror games because it's all just cheap jump scares, but it's still an enjoyable experience if you enjoy that thing of like just horror games in general. And I've always been a huge connoisseur of horror games, so therefore I was more than happy to jump on the trend. But just how quickly this franchise exploded thanks to content creators and just what it became is just baffling.
Yeah, the only thing that I can really equate it to would be Minecraft. Like, is like a smaller couple of game designers, developers building something that then just blows up in such a way that's like bizarre, almost like unexpected.
Yeah.
But the franchise of Five Nights at Freddy's was really interesting because I think of the backstory that people started interpreting behind everything. I think that's probably why it did so well, because like you said, they're not amazing quality horror games. They're like a fairly simple click, like point and click kind of like, like they're not extravagant, but it was the backstory that was what really kind of sparked all of the interest into and something that I think most of us like can relate to as being creepy but not overdone. It hit a very good niche because like I think we saw like the paranormal activities and all this kind of stuff. We got like kind of overdone in the horror genre, but like the new robots and then something that targets like your childhood nostalgia, it was just a very clever combination that really it did well.
Yeah, I mean, especially because a lot of us Americans grew up with Chuck E. Cheese's around us. And so therefore it definitely hit like that, like childhood nostalgia and also creep factor in a way. But now I can 100% say without a shadow of a doubt, I'm never going near fucking Chuck E. Cheese again.
Yeah. No, I've never been to a Chuck E. Cheese.
Or nephews,
I'm not going to a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, no, not doing it again. If any of my nieces, nephews, godchildren, whatever, have to or want to take a fucking trip to Chuck E. Cheese, no, I refuse.
Yeah, no, I'm never going. It's awful. Because the closest I really got was at like some theme parks, you would get like robotics with like either in rides or as like just a side attraction. But my primary like amusement entertainment park that I went to growing up was called Farming World, and it was basically an elaborate petting zoo, but petting zoos aren't really a thing in the UK, so it was like a functioning farm that they then had a couple play areas, like outdoor big play structures, and then you would basically just go there and hang out with a bunch of animals. And yeah, Farming World. I think it went bust in the recession, but that was my primary entertainment park growing up was Farming World.
I mean, hey, whatever works.
And that's how you can tell you grew up in the country, except not that country. I grew up in English countryside.
Oh, I know nothing about the English countryside, but I do know something about being incredibly Southern and from the South. So I'm going to sit here and go through many of the different Southern accents. Now I believe I have settled on Louisiana. So this is where we are going to be for the remainder of the episode.
No, it's funny because we're both Southerners, but very different.
Oh, 100%. Like very, very different culture.
Yeah, because I'm also a Southerner. I'm from Kent, which we established in last episode. Speaking of last episode, which was Vinland Saga, there was hitting on that anime track. We are an anime podcast, so we will talk a little bit about anime, even when we're not doing anime.
Just a little bit.
But there was one thing that was like pissing me off throughout the show the whole time I was watching it, and I don't think I mentioned it in the episode. I can't remember actually talking about it. And I'm like frustrated myself because it was the one thing that I was like, I have to talk about this. And then I don't remember bringing it up. So you have to correct me if I did, but I genuinely don't remember bringing it up. And that is the Mappa intro logo.
Are you talking about like that whole intro skit with the motorcycles?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they did that because that's what Wit Studio did with theirs. And then since they took over for Wit, they just decided to do it themselves as well, just to keep that going. But I'm not a fan.
No, me either. And this is the thing is like, I don't mind those like studio videos that you put in front. Like some of them are so classic, like DreamWorks, Disney, the Warner Brothers one. Like you can picture them as soon as you hear them, right? So I have nothing wrong with the idea of having a studio video, but I don't like how it completely withdrew me from the show and was confusing because of the fact that it's a historical Viking themed anime, and then you put motorbikes in the beginning, and if you're watching them episode to episode and you have autoplay on or whatever, it fucks with you so bad. It pulls you like right out of the show. You're like so hyped for the next episode. They left the last episode on a cliffhanger. You want to just dive right into the next one. And all of a sudden there's motorbikes going across your screen. Like, I didn't like it at all.
I mean, fair enough. Also, the fact that it's unskippable, like Crunchyroll has added a skip intro button, and you can't skip it. Not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah.
You know what else we didn't talk about?
What?
We didn't talk about the OPs and EDs for the second season. Them shits were good.
One of the EDs, the first ED, there's a section in it that sounds exactly like You Bless the Rain Stand in Africa. What is it? Like, Tota? I don't know. That song. If you think of that song while watching the first ED, and it'll click.
You know, I downloaded the songs and I've been listening to them. I've kind of made it a point for like the new anime seasons and then also just what we're covering on the podcast in general to like make a playlist and listen to it. I don't think I caught that, but now I'm going to have to go listen after this because you have piqued my interest. By the way, we are having these conversations 2 weeks before that episode is going to go out because I have skipped our backlog just so we can do this and release it in a timely manner. Because the film just came out and Halloween is a couple days from time of recording. Yeah. So, yeah, we are... Vinland Saga will be out in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So when you listen to that one, remember all of this that we're talking about now.
Yeah, it'll keep it in your brain. So that way, whenever you go watch Vinland Saga and then you listen to the episode, you can be like, okay, you know what? That makes sense. We're gonna roll with that. And then also, thanks, Blue, for pointing that out about the motorbikes, and now we're going to be pissed.
Yes. Well, the thing that aggravated me about it, like, I understand it, and I understand especially if it's a nod to the original studio. Like, I like those aspects. That's kind of cool with that more information. Not knowing that, though, it was frustrating to have it there, especially because there have been some studios that have done really incredible jobs of having their studio logo blend in well with the show that you're watching. And funnily enough, the only example that I can think of right now is Shrek. But if I remember correctly, and I haven't watched Shrek since I was probably about 10, there's a guy, like, you have the DreamWorks Man on the Moon, and then he's fishing, and then he's fishing into Shrek's swamp, and it, like, blends into the show. I think, don't know, may have dreamed it. Like I said, probably watched it 15 years ago. But I think that was, like, something like that. Anyway, I've seen shows do that where they have, like, a set logo clip, but they change it to adapt to the film or the content that they're making and producing. So I guess with this being the second season to a new studio, a nod to the original studio, my issue is less with this season, but more with the first season, with that studio, with the original studio not having adapted that to fit more in. And I would be interested to go back and listen to our first Vinland Saga podcast for the first season and see if I mentioned it there, because I feel like it would have bugged me then as well.
I don't think we had that conversation. I feel like this is the first time we have discussed that gripe. I can't be 100% certain.
I feel like I've had this thought before, but I don't know if I actually verbalized it.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. Now I kind of want to go scrub the episode too and see what I can come up with.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just feel like, I mean, they could have done the same vibe, but, like, could you have not have done it with, like, ships? Like, you can substitute what you have, your iconic logo, your iconic clip, and just blend it better so that you're creating that immersion from the get-go, rather than having to all of a sudden reset the immersion afterwards. And it puts more pressure on the beginning of the episode to hook a viewer, because you've already gotten them one place, and then you now have to bring them across to a whole nother world, right? Like, I feel like it's just too much.
I feel like, too, it's too much whenever you're like us and we binge it for the podcast, because if we had been watching this week to week, I don't feel like we would have necessarily have run into that issue as much, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. I am just speaking out of my ass here, but since we are watching things in bulk, it's a lot easier to notice discrepancies like that. But again, that is simply my opinion. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from people that have watched Vinland Saga, or, like, even things that aren't Vinland Saga. You know, if you've had that experience where you're watching something that is in a specific world, in this case it was historical Viking shit, and then there's, like, something in the beginning, or, like, you click on, like, an advert happens or something, like, how does it feel to you? Does it feel the same way? Like, is it like a slog to try and immerse yourself back into the show? Like, I don't know. I just want to know your guys' thoughts and feelings, because for me, it's like, that was just too much. I was like, ugh, now I have to, like, force myself to sit here and watch this because I've already ADHD'd onto something else, and now I have to ADHD back onto this. Like,
oh yeah, which, I mean, I will say, whenever it comes to ads and stuff like that, that does bother me. That bothers me to the point to where I will pay so I don't have to have, like, ad services. Like Crunchyroll Premium, I pay for. YouTube Premium, I pay for. I had to fucking get a Peacock subscription so we could watch this film. So I paid theater level pricing for this podcast. So you guys are welcome. But yeah, it's again, I am more than happy to pay just so I don't have to deal with ads, because ads do break the immersion and they break up what like just the overall experience, like especially as much as I've been watching Critical Role here lately, which are like 4-hour episodes. The amount of ads I would have to sit through on YouTube to deal with that shit would drive me insane. So yeah, I 100% understand where you're coming from. It's one of those things where it didn't necessarily bother me with Vinland Saga, but it might have just been because I remembered that's how Wit does theirs. And then since Attack on Titan takes it over, it does the same thing, because they did it with Attack on Titan too, with the later seasons and stuff. So I think that's why it didn't necessarily bother me, is because I noticed that they did that for them. And I'm very curious whenever part 4 drops this upcoming weekend, if they're going to include that with it as well. By the way, fun fact, Attack on Titan officially finishes next week. So something for the AOT fans that are caught up to look forward to is actually watching the anime end. Finally, Mappa has had their hands on this shit for 4 fucking years, and it's now coming to an end. Took them 4 years to do a final season. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, the movie. Part 4, the movie. I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything is fine.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is cool when you're part of a team. I'm almost done with scripting the next D&D script. Very, very close to being finished. So I'm gonna have to record that with Brianna at some point in the near future.
Yeah, then send it to me.
Yeah, I do it. It'll probably be between now and December, because I don't foresee I'm gonna get to it with Saturday's episode session. So we'll see. But as soon as I get it done, I send it to you, so that way you can see. Because it's not as long, because I don't have nearly as much to work with as far as Walker's backstory goes, because he's pretty much leaving it up to me, which is a problem. As a DM, it's frustrating for him to be like, no, you figure it out, because he's wanting to save it for once we finish Strahd, and then I homebrew an entire campaign for these fuckers. He's pretty much saving whatever he wants to do for that, which, I mean, I understand, but also it's frustrating, because at least with Yor and Breeze, like, you and I worked hand in hand in that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, hey, figure it out. Like, no, we sat down and we planned that shit out for like 2 hours.
Until my laptop literally died.
Yeah. And we're going to have to do it again whenever we start the campaign at some point in the near future. Oh, by the way, at this point, the last campaign is scrapped. I still have that first episode. I might do something with it. I might not. I don't know. But I have it edited and finished.
It's a thing that we'll figure out as we go.
We'll do something about that. But yeah, I'm excited. I don't know how well I could write a film script or something like that, but these short little VO scripts, I'm very pleased with how they are turning out. So,
well, you just write one scene and then do that again and again and again and again and again until you have 500 scenes, and then you're good to go. Film script.
Oh, but the problem with that, though, is that most films aren't just narrated the whole time by me just describing the world and what people see.
Hey, I mean, friggin' D&D films might be. I don't know.
Well, there's only one of those up to this point. I don't know why this has been my chosen fidget toy for the day, but here we are. I'm fidgeting with a pen.
I have my mug is the main thing that I've been fidgeting with. I always fidget with my hair. You probably see that all the time when we're recording. Is flipping it, especially now that it's wet. It's yeah. Also, I have this little tiny lip balm that my dentist gave me.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's another fidget thing. It's brand Chap Ice in cherry lip balm for dry chapped lips with vitamin E.
It's chapping season for y'all, ain't it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, everyone's a chap now.
I was gonna say, because I think whenever it's hot and whenever it's cold is like the number one times for lips to chap.
Yeah, I also have Nivea Active Care for Men.
Fair enough.
For men. And I was trying to figure out, because my mom bought a bunch of packs of these.
Uh-huh.
And one of them had like a lighter package and another one had like a yellow package, and I was trying to figure out what the difference was and why this one was specifically for men. And this one's for men because it has aloe vera in it. So men need aloe vera.
Is it just because of like the stereotype of men work in the sun, therefore like chapped lips from sunburn, so therefore they need aloe vera? I don't
know, because this isn't even like here in Canada you can get quite a lot of like sun protecting lip balms because of snowburn, so like it's a thing that you can get them, and it doesn't have any like SPF in it, so it's like a post sun care, I guess, but like I don't know, men. If you need a lip balm, this one's decent.
All right. If only I actually use those things, I would keep that in mind.
Yeah, my lips have been so bad.
Yeah, I've never been one for chapstick or lip balm or anything like that. It's never been for me. It's just because I don't like my lips feeling oily, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really bad at using them. I need to use them way more than I do. Because, yeah, I always end up with split lips. I'm like, ugh, should have just used lip balm. But do I? No, not really.
Nah,
I just
it's
happen to
fine.
have that one in my pocket.
We will suffer together. High five.
Yeah, got my CT scan tomorrow. Figure out what's going on with this bad boy.
Yeah, which, you're getting mobility back now, so at least that's a plus.
Yeah, I can pick things up and put them down. And
can you pick up a gallon of milk?
Not if it's full. But if it's like somewhat used, yes.
Okay, so you're getting there. You're getting there. That's a plus.
Yeah, that's my exact pain bit though, is like that weight on here, like on this part of the wrist. That's where my cartilage is shredded. Yeah. So like that's the worst bit. But like I can hold a mug now. So
that's a plus.
Yeah, and I'm chicken winging less, where I'm like trying to like, because I still have rotation issues. But yeah, CT scan tomorrow, then physio, and then in about 2 weeks' time I go see my surgeon again. I'm like, hey surgeon, what's going on with my bone? But my physio is probably gonna already have told me by the time I get to my surgeon, because physios are cool like that, and they tell you your secrets before your surgeon tells you your secrets.
So is your physio person going to get your CT scan before the surgeon?
Likely, yes. Yeah. So, because the first appointment that my surgeon had after my CT scan was booked was 2 weeks' time, but it doesn't take that long for a CT scan to be put through. I think it takes like 40 hours or something. So, my physio will have access to the results of the CT scan, and I will be seeing my physio in between the CT scan and my surgeon appointment. But my physio can't like tell me, like they can't use that as a diagnostics for progression in the same way. Yeah. So like they could be like, okay, so I'm going to talk to your surgeon about what I think that we can do next with this or whatever. But it's at the end of the day, the surgeon's call is to being like, okay, yeah, we can up your weight or increase your training in this way or whatever. But like it gives the physio a better idea of like, are we on the right track? Maybe introducing a couple more exercises. But like I don't have permission to do this sideways motion yet or twisting motion yet. So I'm still only up and down.
Up, down, up, down.
Up and down. Yeah. So, sorry.
Fair enough.
That's where we're at. But my scar's looking good. It's looking all flimsy, which is what we want. Nobody wants a stiff scar.
I don't know anything about that. I don't have the
No,
surgeries.
go do scar massage so that your scar moves like regular skin and not like scar skin.
Yeah, that. Do that.
Do that. Remember to give yourself your scar massages. Especially if it's on a
Yeah.
bone.
Especially when it's on the bone. And don't pay attention to if they drill that bone.
Yeah, if they put a hole in your bone, you may end up putting your finger in the hole and it'll give you the heebie-jeebies.
I was going to say,
I still have a
how's
hole
that?
in my bone. It's still there, the hole in my bone. It's, yeah, still there.
I just watched the look of disgust on your face.
Yeah. So for context, in case you're a newer listener, I had a bone marrow transplant from my hip to my arm. And to do that, they have to drill into your hip bone and then put a needle inside the bone and then get the bone marrow that way. The incision healed from that very quickly. With 2 days post surgery, I was able to take off the strip. I'd only had internal stitches, so I had nothing on the surface. And within a week or so, it was completely covered over and healed and fine, and the scab was off, and it was very normal. So I had to do the scar massages on it, and as I was doing the scar massages, I was like, oh, this was really fine. I don't understand why we're having to do this. And then all of a sudden, my finger found where they had drilled the hole into my hip bone and just went into my hip. And I nearly vomited. It was so disgusting and horrible. Hated it. And now every now and again I check on that to see how the hole is growing over. And it's still awful. I hate it. It's horrible. No, it should be a flat bone surface, and it's not. There's a hole in it.
Oh, it was one of those things where I remember you telling me about that whenever you found out about it. And that was the first time I remembered to actually ask about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
still gross.
My goodness. Yep.
Still gross.
Understandable.
Yeah. It never occurred to me that they would have to drill the hole into the bone, which is so dumb because obviously they do. But I knew they used a needle. I knew they used a very big needle. And for some reason, it just didn't occur to me that they still needed to put a hole in the bone before they put the needle through. Because in my head, I was just yeah, they just put a needle in your hip. Because that's about the extent, they don't, when you're doing heavy surgery, they don't tell you every single step of the surgery, They just tell you the general procedures of what's going to happen. So I knew that there was going to be a hip in my bone. But because I was out...
There's going to be a hip in your bone?
There was going to be a needle in my hip bone. And the thing is the thing that's really weird is the idea that normally bone marrow transplants are done when you're awake because they're not a too invasive of a procedure. But because I was having this all done, they did it all at once, so I was out. But the idea of being awake, sitting on a table, I assume they would put a cover so you can't see, but then you're just hearing a drill go into your head, and you just see a giant needle. Nah. Yeah, very glad I was unconscious for that.
Yeah, no, I would have lost my shit if I had been awake for something like that, because I'm already terrified of needles. I don't understand how you donate as much blood as you do, because needles terrify me enough as it is. It takes everything in me to, whenever I'm sick, to go get a shot in my ass for steroids. It takes everything in me to go get that done, let alone if I had to have blood drawn. Oh, heaven forbid the doctor that has to fucking deal with me over that, because no.
I think I got over I don't know if I ever really had a fear of needles, but I got over my discomfort with them from two things. One, my uncle, who I was most close to, would see the most, was type 1 diabetic. He's not dead, still is type 1 diabetic, and had been since he was 6 years old. So he was constantly pricking his fingers, and then I was around my cousins, they would play with his needles because we were children, and not that, but his blood pressure thing, they were always blood sugar glucose thing, they were always mucking around with it. I guess it was their dad, so they were fucking around. And so I saw them constantly playing with needles that way. So I was exposed to needles a lot when I was young, but then also during the immigration process, I got shoved with needles. Like, they're like, oh, you're moving to another country? Have every single vaccine ever. Have you already had them? That's okay. You get them again. Oh, you want, like, these vaccines aren't even important? Oh, well, have them anyway. So I had, like, and it's not just over, like, the immigration process as well. It's also because I immigrated as a kid, I then had to have my, like, middle school, high school shots. But I got like 4 times the amount of like the other kids because I had all of the like, the Canadian government they're not like, oh yeah, you had those shots in the UK, so we're not going to give them to you now. They're like, they just see it as you haven't had those vaccines yet, so we're going to give them to you. Even if like you say that you've had them, we can't guarantee that you have, or the quality of the ones that you've had. Even if like I was coming from England, like it was NHS shots, but they were still like, we're going to give, like, you can't over vaccinate someone.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just like, safe and sorry, take the vaccines. So every single time we had like high school vaccine shots, instead of getting like the usual 1 or 2, I normally had like 4 or 5 shots. So I got over it pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I could never. Not for
I only
me.
fainted one time.
You.
Yeah. On the way, I got my shots, several of them. And then I went back to class, and then my arm was really numb. My whole arm. I think it was the MMR shot. I don't know. Went back to class, and I was like, I don't feel good. And they're like, do you want to go back to the nurse? And I'm like, maybe. And so I went back to the nurse, and then on the way back to the nurse, I was like, yeah.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I was like, maybe you shouldn't have let the kid walk themselves back to the nurse, you know?
Probably not, no.
Maybe. It might have been nice to have had. Anyway, I picked myself up and went back to the nurse and was like, I feel dizzy, and didn't tell anybody that I fainted, because that's what you do when you're like 14.
Yeah, no, it's just, you suffer silently, and then you pay for the consequences later.
Yeah. No, I was like, if you ever fainted and hit your head, and I'm like, yes, nobody knew. Like 10 years later.
I told no one. You are actually the first person I told. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's enough vanity. Let's get into the movie.
Yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't know how to do background on this, so it's a thing.
It's a thing. Let's do a quick well, Five Nights at Freddy's is based on the Five Nights at Freddy's game franchise. I don't know when the game franchise came out. But this film had... I think
it was like 9-10 years ago now.
Like, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's a thing.
This film had a budget of $20 million, and in the box office, currently Wikipedia is saying $113.6 million. I assume USD because it's Wikipedia. They don't give a shit about anybody else's dollars.
American. Yeah. The original Five Nights at Freddy's released August 18th of 2014.
Wow. So nearly a full decade later, this film comes out.
Yep.
It has a runtime of 109 minutes, which is, I feel like, average for a film.
Yeah, I mean, standard feature-length film, that 100% is average. By the time you cut out credits, it's probably like an hour and 35, give or take.
Yeah, and it released on October 25th in the UK and October 27th in the US. I think Canada also released on the 27th as well, because cinemas are weird over here and they launch things on Thursdays.
Used to be Fridays, but they kept like pushing back the releases.
Yeah. So yeah, some big names and a lot of cameos in this film. From like Matt Pat was in it, who you're in the gaming community, and he said his thing. He said the thing.
He did say the thing. So you had him. Corey Kenshin was in it. That was a good little cameo.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed Markiplier wasn't in it.
I know. Markiplier and Jacksepticeye both being in it would have been very good.
Yeah, it would have been. Granted, there probably will be an opportunity in the second film because it's already been confirmed that there will be a second one. It's already in pre-production.
Mm-hmm.
So that will come around eventually. And I mean, I understand the reason Mark couldn't be in it because he was working on his own film at the same time and he couldn't like expend those 2 days to go out to do it. So it's disappointing because he was originally, from what I was seeing, he was supposed to be the original security guard in the beginning.
Oh, okay. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I mean, so as soon as I found that out, just the whole first bit, like I just imagined him in it. So like, I like that.
No, I'd love to see both Mark and Jack be in it. But I wonder if they will get Jacksepticeye in because then they'd have to pay for his flights, and that's like expensive.
It's as much money as they've made off of this, they can afford it.
They can now. For the first film, I mean, they still had a big budget, but like, they didn't know how it was going to go.
No.
Especially because somewhere along the line, the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise shifted from adult content to children's content, and I don't really know how that happened, but it very much did.
I think it was just, like, the games are still horror games. It's just they got better as they had better budgets.
Mm-hmm.
But they are still horror games. But thanks to YouTubers, and I 100% think YouTubers are, for one, to blame for the games taking off the way that they did, especially Mark being like pretty much the biggest FNAF gamer from everything that I saw coming out of it. So, but just because of how it exploded, YouTube is predominantly consumed by children and young adults and people in that kind of range. So therefore, if something like that takes off on YouTube and just how much it exploded because of that, they can market it to kids. The games are not marketed to kids, but the content is marketed to kids. Therefore, they can market products to those kids because it's there.
Yeah. I wonder how many Five Nights at Freddy's videos are on YouTube Kids.
I don't want to even think about it.
Because, like, a good portion, I'd bet. And for kids, no. No, not for kids. People are dying.
Definitely not. No. I mean, I guess the thing about it is, and I'm not going to sit here and advocate for it, because, so don't construe this the wrong way, but I think if you had a family-friendly content creator, I 100% think it could show up on YouTube for kids, because the games never actually show death. Like, there are jump scares, sure, but I mean, minus the profanity of, you know, the content creators themselves, there's not really anything like crossing boundaries, at least in the first few games.
Yeah, and I mean, this is coming from us. Like, I was raised on Diablo, so like, say what you will, but like, like I don't know, like gaming content is so much more, like rated now. Like the ratings actually mean something. When we were growing up, games had ratings, but like nobody cared.
Yeah, no, like I've talked about this before, but I vividly remember playing Silent Hill and Alone in the Dark on the PS1 as a child. And I still remember the fucking night terrors that those games gave me. Yeah. Like, I can still feel the anxiety in my chest as we sit here and talk about it.
I mean, like, I feel like even things like Tomb Raider and shit were like, I can't really remember them, but like, I remember them being like, not safe for kids, you know? Like, they're not like bad, but they're not like, you know?
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. Like, they were definitely more geared towards adults, but nobody gave a shit.
No,
like, I shouldn't have been allowed to play those games, but they let me, and so that's why here I am addicted to Metal Gear, because my uncle let me play the shit out of Metal Gear Solid 1.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't really play them as much myself. My brother played them, but I sat on the arm of his chair telling him when his mana was low every single day. So, your mana's low, you need to take a health potion.
Oh, you're
my
like
job.
the oh god, the name's escaping me, but you're like the little fairy in the Legend of Zelda games. Here, take this. Here,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this.
Yeah, no, that was legit me when we were, that was legitness when we were kids.
Oh, it's like a little pocket fairy.
Yeah. And that was sub 10. Because we emigrated at 10 and that was in the UK.
Oh yeah.
Well, we emigrated at 10. Everyone emigrated at 10. I was 10.
Oh, we were bantering about something in the Discord the other day, and Patch, the one that did the tea video that I sent you, he was going off about something and talking about how like he said something about the Brits, and we all chimed in like, no, the Brits don't like you. And then I was like, as somebody who has a pocket Brit, I can confirm. So apologies for referring to you as my pocket Brit, but
no, that's fine. That's fine.
But I was like, no, it makes sense for the bit because I have your confirmation. He's not allowed at any tea party.
No. He can't come.
Nope, not allowed.
Not allowed. Okay, so I am curious about the lore of this film in comparison to the lore of the games.
Has Matt Pat already done a video on it? I have to actually look this up now.
Because
Film
yeah.
theory.
Because from my like I said, these games came out like 10 years ago, and I didn't watch through some of the later games. Like I played the first couple and I watched a bunch of videos on the first couple, but when it got like later on in the series, I didn't watch as much and I didn't play them myself. So there is some lore that I don't know. That being said, I don't know how the lore lines up with the film. The film has a very established understanding of how the animatronics came to be. And there's a very big reveal, and like what happens is very established. And I don't know if it entirely lines up with the video games. So I'm very curious as to figure out like where everything slots in, because I'm sure they would have. I'm sure it does somehow. I just don't know.
So Scott Cawthon, the creator of the video games, had a huge hand in the film's development.
Yeah.
So I would say it probably lines up at least quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I have a basic understanding of the lore because whenever I'm bored, I turn on Matt Pat videos. So I don't know why, but just listening to that man explain random shit just makes the brain emit happy juice. I don't understand why, but it's just like he breaks it down to the point to where an idiot like myself can actually fully understand what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I'm going to be very interested to see if he does a video on it.
He already has.
He has?
He has.
Okay.
So probably should have watched that before we sat down to do this, but here we are.
We can do an update next week.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
That'll come out in like in 3 weeks' time for you guys.
Oh, so yeah, look forward to the vending machine anime episode. Oh, which, by the way, there is an anime about a vending machine. It's very good.
Yes, and we are going to record a podcast on that soon, which will come out in about a month's time for you guys.
Yeah, it'll be great. It's also going to be very confusing because next week's episode, I'll be telling you happy birthday, and will be well past your birthday when that episode releases.
Wow, yeah, it's my birthday. Okay.
It is.
Yeah. That was
Congratulations. Quick. You're going to be old like me.
I know, I'm going to be on that side of 25.
Yeah. It's fine. One step closer to 30. Oh, God, I'm going to be 30 in 2 years.
Wow.
It terrifies me. Terrifies me.
Okay. From here on out, I am going to chuck on those spoiler chicken hats. just for precaution, I don't know how much we're going to get into actual spoilers into a little bit later in the episode, but I do want to start going into some background stuff, so... There you go. I was waiting for it.
I was waiting on the pause so I could do it. I had my finger on the button, just ready. Just come on, give it to me.
Give it to me. Yeah, well, big names in this. Josh Hutcherson being the lead.
Yeah, PETA from Twilight. It was great.
You could have chosen any name as well and made it just extra worse.
I thought about going sourdough bread from Twilight. I had to purposefully say something wrong, but I also thought about just fully going left field. It's great. I'm here for it.
Yeah. But he's in it, and he's been acting for a million years because he has done stuff as a kid as well. Before, because he was the biggest name going into the Hunger Games series other than J-Law, right?
I don't know, man. I didn't watch the Hunger Games films until way after the fact.
I read the trilogy in a weekend, and they were okay. People are gonna murder me for that, but they were just okay to me.
I mean, I can't be bothered to read the books. If I wanted to be bothered to deal with something like that, I just go play Fortnite. And I can't be bothered to play Fortnite either.
They were the Hunger Games. They were fine. I'm just looking up his IMDb for what I knew him from when we were kids. I watched things. The Bridge to Terabithia. That's the bit.
Oh, that's right. That's the one that.
And Journey to the Center of the Earth. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that the one with
Howl's Moving Castle? Bitch.
What?
In the English version, he voiced somebody.
So Howl's had
he was real young.
And no, never mind. I'm thinking of Castle in the Sky. Because I was just sitting there thinking Castle in the Sky had Mark Hamill in it.
Markle. In the English version.
I don't know what that is.
Neither do I. Don't remember. I'm assuming just some random kid. Let's see. Oh yeah, the kid, the ginger kid.
The ginger kid?
Yeah. Oh shoot, the apprentice boy kid who was an old, dressed up like an old guy wizard kid boy.
Nope.
Here.
So you got to remember, you chose to do a podcast with an idiot, so this is where we're at. Oh, that kid.
That vibe.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. He voiced him.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
I've learned a thing.
Yeah. So that's how we're connecting this to anime. Josh Hutcherson is a voice actor.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I was quite surprised to see him in it. But it had a large budget for a horror film. Trigger warnings, all of your regular horror film trigger warnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Violence,
jump scares, death.
The whole, the whole bloody 9 yards.
Yeah.
God, especially that bitch getting chomped in half. I did not expect that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That, yeah.
Because think about it is, up to that point, like we didn't really see like any just true gore.
No.
Like there was a lot that was implied, but just getting chomped in half.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the biggest shock out of the whole film to me.
Yeah, that, and then there was the, like, for actual gore, because that was a shadow mainly, but there was actual gore when Mike Schmidt, Josh Hutcherson's character, wakes up, and he's in, is it him that wakes up? And yeah, and then there's all of the, like, the babysitter and her group of cronies, I don't know, who are around him and they're dead, and it's going to like one person, then it pans to another person, and then it pans to the guy who got the mask put on, and so his face is the most gory because he had the gears shoved on his face, although they weren't gears, like they make it, I suppose they're fans, like what their function as an animatronic.
I don't know. Like I would assume it's gears, but they were spinning so quick that they were basically saw blades.
And that's the thing. So I'm like the most thing I could think of is like a fan with like a metal blade.
Maybe I don't know, man.
Don't know. But this is where my questions come in, because from my understanding of the original, like the first game, it was that the animatronics see the security guard, and they think that they're an animatronic out of costume, and they know that that's against the rules, so they have to put the person into the costume because that they're against the rules. So that's why they get shoved into the costumes, and that's only from the first game. So I don't know how the lore built on that, but that was my understanding going into this, of like, okay, so that's kind of like why the animatronics do it. Turns out in the film that's not what happens. That's not why they do what they do.
Well,
but
so
also
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So the film was actually somewhat accurate to the whole like FNAF lore bit of the animatronics were actually being possessed by children that were
I remember that bit.
Put there by William Afton. So that was very interesting. Now actually seeing William Afton was interesting, because I don't think we ever saw him out of like in true physical body form throughout the games that I can think of, because he was always just referred to as the purple guy. Yes. But again, a lot of this is very basic knowledge from MatPat videos that I've watched, because I played most of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. I can tell you fuck all about the lore.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think that's another reason as to why the games became so popular, is because there's a lot of hidden secrets and there's a lot of things that you can find out through playing the games multiple times. So they have replay ability. And then there was so much to dissect with the plots of the games and the characters in the games. So I did know that the kids possessed the animatronics. But yeah, anyway, the idea, the way that the film is executed, it's a horror film. I didn't go into it expecting much in the lines of plot. It was very entertaining. It's hold for pipes. It's a good film. It does have a very easy to understand storyline. There's a bunch of plot holes, but as you said, there's already been approved for a second film, so I'm withholding for those. But yeah, my biggest thing was like, I don't understand I get why okay. In the process of killing someone, in the headpiece, they had the blade saws going around that they put on, like cut up his face, right? In my head, because obviously they don't show it in the games, it was a fully functioning animatronic skull, right? That had all of the components and pieces. There was nothing extra, no saw or like weaponry that was hidden inside the animatronic. And it was purely the force of a robot shoving your head into something that already has metal pieces in there that was making your head explode like a watermelon. I think that's scarier. but I understand the need for the visuals of having the saw blades and then like the slow process. But like in my head, it was just like it's like a full, it's like shoving your face into a car engine. Like there's already shit there. Your head doesn't have anywhere to go. Your head's going to be crushed more than the engine will. Like, so that was how I had imagined it going. And it was interesting to see a different interpretation of that in the film, with there actually being like some semblance of physical weaponry within there, whether it just be like a machine fan or like whatever. But yeah, like that was not what I had pictured the inside of it looking like.
Yeah, well, the games made it imply that you were stuffed inside of the suit and therefore either crushed from being crammed in the suit, or once they brought in the lore of the like spring trap contraptions in it, I honestly saw it a lot more as like what happened to Afton in the end of the film, with like the spring locks like actually going in and piercing organs like that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where my head was at with it. And then like actually seeing it in the films, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was like not bizarre to me, but it was like one of those moments of like, oh, that's not how I thought it went. But I don't necessarily think it's wrong. I just think it was a different interpretation to what I had in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, Matt Pat makes a cameo. He says the line. That was really great. Love to see him in there. He is a huge theatre nerd, so good to see him doing something in the theatre realm, even though he's not in theatre. It's a movie. But Phone Guy is all I'm going to say about him, because I did put the spoiler chicken out on, but Phone Guy was interesting how they cut that, because in the games you only ever hear him on the receiving end of the phone, so his voice is always distorted. I found it interesting that they cut to and from his character they had him as a job recruiter, like a job counselor, career counselor, and he was giving the instructions over the phone as the career counselor, which I thought was very interesting, because it even removes him one step further from the job specifically. Like, he's not part of the company.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting to see how they flicked back to that. I would have kind of preferred it if they had done his entire phone call with the distorted on the other end of the phone voice, even when they flicked back to him, like he still has the distorted phone voice, because that voice is so iconic as being part of the game.
Even if they had done that for like the training video, like had him do the voiceover for that I would have been fine with.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Because that's more of what I remember of the game than like anything else, is that phone guy who you're just like, you play the game like 14 times because you're trying to get through it, and you just get fucking pissed off at him. You're just like, shut the fuck up. And he's still going on about shit. Like, that's like, it's part of the game. It's part of the thing is to be pissed off at phone guy. And yeah, I found it interesting because like the instructions in Five Nights at Freddy's that phone guy gives you are so important. Well, they're how you play the game, but like they're so like iconic as well. And he didn't give as many instructions as to like, he gave some like the breaker and things like that. But I would have been cooler to have gotten, because we did get some hints. Like, we got for the first security guy, we got the him crawling through the vents, like a couple of things like that. We got Foxy outside the door. Yeah, there were like hints to the other games as well, and things that you had to look for. I don't know. I guess I'm interested to see more of the film universe and to what they explore further with that.
Yeah, because I am very curious to see where it goes from here, because there were a lot of unanswered questions. I want to know what the fuck happened to the aunt.
Yes. Yep.
Because
they just went home and it was fine.
Yeah, like, just she wasn't seen again, and last we saw she was unconscious in the middle of the living room. Well, I say unconscious, we don't know if she's dead.
There was a shadow that could have been blood but was left up to interpretation.
Yeah. Vanessa was in a coma. She didn't wake up, so that's bullshit.
Yep.
God, there was so many unanswered questions, and I get it. Like, they were setting it up for a second film. But
also, okay, so Mike has just been served a court order thing, like, you meet me at court because I'm taking your sister shit. Sometime later, a few days later, the aunt who served him that is dead on his floor.
Yep.
All I'm saying is, Abby is probably going to a care home, which is awful. But, like, that's...
She was dead on his floor. He called in to report a police officer being stabbed at his place of work.
Yeah, where they would probably also find at least 3 other bodies of his babysitter, and then two of her friends.
On top of a dude that's been crammed in a suit that was dead at the end, or assumed to be dying at the very end.
Yeah.
My goodness. But did he? Yeah, I don't know, man. Shit's wild.
Shit is wild. And I'm still kind of mad at Vanessa because, like, yeah, I get your dad's a creep, but also you just like, it's the whole thing of like, wow, he really fucked you up, and that's a reason why you're not telling me to get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah,
like they're like, I get it to a certain extent, but also, like, just tell him you don't want this job. Like, they're like, it's haunted, they're gonna come alive, they're gonna eat your face off. If you don't believe me, give it a night. Like, she's like, in my own way, I tried to tell you. Well, you did a shit job of it, girly. And, like,
and then, so not only that, but Afton said that he killed his brother.
Yeah.
But what did that have to do with everything else going on? Because his brother wasn't stuffed into one of the suits.
No.
And so how did all of that tie in to him being the one to get the job there? Is the dude at the employment agency, like, is he in league with Afton, so that way sourdough bread was the one that got the job there, so he could, like, finish the trail of, like, going after his family? Like, I have so many questions that I didn't get answers to. But also, tying that back around, yeah, Vanessa's character, I think, was just poorly written.
Agreed.
Like, very poorly written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I couldn't...
it's the whole, like, it's the whole, like, my dad messed me up when I was a kid, which, he's a murderer, so fair, but because of that trauma situation, I'm now, like, still, like, I'm, like, it's not even like I don't know, like, it's just that it was so flat, like, there was no depth as to why she was protecting him, as to why she hadn't turned him in, as to why, you know, she was, like, because she clearly felt for the kids' ghosts, and she was, like, doing what she considered her best to protect Abby and Mike, but she wasn't, like, she was, I don't know, like, I needed more to give her a reason as to why she wasn't actively against her dad, because there didn't seem to be, like, I get why she could have been, like, if you, like, think, like, oh, the level of abuse or whatever is to manipulation, you can get people to do crazy shit. I get that. But we didn't get that reason. So it just kind of seemed like she grew up in a household where she knew that her dad was a murderer of children, and then let this boy and his kid sister go into this job where she knew they would be in danger and didn't do anything about it. And she gave them, like, weak hints as to what might be a thing. And then like doesn't really do much of anything. Like there wasn't enough of a reason for her to be so evasive.
I mean, not only that, but after it even said, he was like, look, I gave you explicit instructions to keep him in the dark.
Mm.
So it's obvious that they were in cahoots in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least he had different expectations of her. So there should have been, like, in my mind, those interactions should have went differently between her and Rye Peanut Butter Sandwich.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel I think that there wasn't enough explanation as to why she continued to do what she did, other than the vague hints that we were given about just like abuse in general. But like yeah, another thing, I think it was a blessing and a curse to have Josh Hutcherson in the film, because he's clearly a good actor, has a lot of experience, and can emote very well. This is still a horror film with names that aren't big and people that don't have as much experience as what he does working on sets like this. Mm-hmm. And there were times when you could see him acting and his co-actor there were just not up to par with where he was at. And normally with horror films, you can kind of get away with it because everyone is of the same level. But when you have someone that has so many years of experience and compare them with someone who is still probably quite experienced, but just not to the extent. I mean, he was in one of the biggest franchises to have ever been made in recent years. Like he's got vast, and he's been in films and stuff since he was tiny. You know, he's got his entire life worth of experience and experience on a huge stage. And you compare that with people that may have just as much experience, like they may have been doing it for as long, but may not have just been doing it to the elevation, to the level that he has been doing it. And you do see a contrast of people, and you're just like, you're doing great, but I can tell that you're trying to keep up.
And again, part of me wonders if, like, who that fell on. Like, was it the casting director, or was it just the scriptwriter in general? Mm-hmm. Because, again, in my opinion, like, I felt like a lot of the writing fell flat on a lot of the characters outside of, like, Wonder Bread, his sister, and, you know, a few of the other characters. But outside of that, a lot of the other, like, main staples just weren't doing it. Mm-hmm. For me. Like, and again, I don't know if it just fell on the scripting, the writing, like where it fell apart, but it was definitely a mismatch either on a skill or just storyline perspective.
Yeah. I do think that I agree with you. I think that there's something like either in the directing or the writing, I'm not sure, casting, that was a little bit off throughout. And I think I see it in the example of Abby Piper, who plays Abby, which is the younger sister. I can see it in her a lot. I don't think she was miscast. I think she did very well for her role. But you can see it in the fact that she is supposed to be like ecstatic and like so happy and so comforted by these animatronics. They're great. But like, and maybe this is just like it's a small thing and stuff, but like the way she would smile about it is like a kid, like, oh, like we're like only 2 more hours in this car ride. Yay. It was like she wasn't, there was something on set that was blocking her from being genuinely excited and happy. And I know how it is to work with kids, but like there are ways where you can get that reaction that you want out of a kid. And I wonder if it's a direction issue. Like, because like you can, like, she wasn't, there was that level of like Freddy turning up at her house and she's like, yay, closed mouth smiles, you know? And I'm like, I want you to, like, you're supposed to be, like, this is supposed to be the best thing ever, and it's not the best thing ever. You don't really give a shit. And I can tell you don't really give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, too, is, like, it was implied that there was underlying trauma there. Like, she was going to a school for, you know, kids that had, like, a harsh upbringing because of, like, what happened with their parents. That was vaguely, like, hinted at going through all of that. So I'm not sure, like, where the disconnect comes from. Like, there were a lot of really good points to the story that I enjoyed. Like, I enjoyed myself throughout the entire film. It's just there were points where I was just like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. I think the kids in the dream sequences did very well. The kid who played Freddy, great job. And I think the kid who played Abby did a really good job as well. I think there was issues with directing with her because it was like, sometimes she would do really, specifically in group scenes, whenever she was with like the other kids at schools, really great. Whenever she was like frightened, very easy for that. That was a good emotion for her. Did very well. But like the happy scenes, I felt like she was bored, and I'm like, did you actually want to be there? You look like you're bored. Yeah, the rest of the script writing, especially like with the babysitter with Max and stuff, I feel like they could have done so much more with her, because she was on this borderline good bad character. Like, you can totally understand how she got there. She wants to screw people over. She got hired by the aunt. Like, she's trying to fuck them over, but also she's fallen in love with the kid, and she doesn't see anything wrong with the brother. And so she's like, why am I doing this? Like, this kind of feels sucky. Like, I don't really want to be in this position. But that's never verbalized, just kind of from her expression on her face, that you're kind of putting two and two together, that she's being led by her boyfriend or whatever into doing these things. And I feel like they could have gotten us more attached to her as a character before they bit her in half.
Yeah. Again, it's just, I feel like the film could have used with an extra hour. Like, there were a lot of things that I wanted fleshed out more from characters that we probably won't ever see again, or just things that I wanted, you know, expanded out on. And honestly, I wanted more horror things. Like, I am a horror connoisseur. Like, I love horror games. And so it's just kind of, I don't know. And I get it. It's a different medium. You can't get as invested in a film as you do games because you're not physically playing it. But I don't know. Like, I wanted more. And granted, that falls on me because as someone who has played the sheer amount of horror games that I have played, I say it all the time, that I can't stand horror films because they're not anywhere near as good as games. But I was hoping that a film made after one of the biggest gaming franchises of the modern era would hopefully put just a little bit more effort in that area.
Yeah. I actually noticed that as well. Other than the original, like, security guard death in the very beginning that sets the tone for the film, the rest of the horror comes probably at least 2/3 into the film. Like, it's not like there's a whole lot of story that is built up beforehand that I understand why it was put in there. But at the end of the day, it is a horror film, and it's a cheesy horror film that's coming out right before Halloween. Like, it's supposed to be gory and gross, and there just wasn't as much of it as I thought. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. I sneezed.
You're blessed.
Thank you. I sneezed out my thought.
Well, that's one way to do it.
It's gone now. That's it. Yeah, anyway, and most of the horror shit came in the last, like, third of the film, and I was like, oh, well, it's a horror film, you know, we had to wait a while, but we got there in the end.
But even then, like, it wasn't, I hate how horror films nowadays are so based around like how much gore can we spill. Fuck off, I'm making a point outside. Yeah, I don't know, it's one of those things to where I feel like you don't need gore to have a good horror film.
Yeah, there's some amazing psychological horrors out there that have no gore whatsoever.
Yeah, and again, the FNAF games were good, not because they had gore, but it was because you felt helpless in the games. Like, there's literally no way to fight back in those games. Horror games that give you the ability to fight back kind of take that tension out of it a little bit. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel like whenever they upped the, like, spookage in this film by, like, presenting real physical dangers, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, you can combat that with a motherfucking taser. And here, have 2 tasers, a stun baton, and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, no, like, I make them feel helpless and have to overcome it with pure wits, not a bucket of water and a taser.
No, I actually agree with you on that. And and another thing, they took out the 7 days thing, and like that's the whole thing of the game is you survive 7 days and then you win. Like, I kind of wanted that more verbalized, even if it was just like, hey, if you like stay at this job for the next 7 days, then I can get you an opening to this other job. Like, even if they would just like in that initial conversation of the job interview of being like, yeah, you just have to be here for a week. And if you manage to get here for a week, then I can get this opening in this other security position. But they have said explicitly that you have to have worked at like 2 security jobs because he was already a mall security guy. So then it's like, oh, they say like they won't hire anybody unless they're like either already in a security job, so currently working, or have worked, like, I don't know, some loophole that you can, stupid loophole that you could make up for no reason, that would give you that hint to the game of, like, why does the security guard keep coming back to this fucking job? Like, what's, like, why don't they just walk away yet? And that would have given him incentive, especially with the situation with the sister, being like, okay, well, it's not just that I have to stay at this job, is that I have to stay at this job consistently for this amount of time, and then when I'm done I can leave and it could be fine and it's good and it's over, and it gives you a goal. But this job didn't seem to have a goal, and it was like, and he wasn't trying to find a different job. That's the biggest plot hole, I think, for me, is that, like, I get the fact that he was trying to find more information out about his brother, and like he was having better dreams and stuff there and learning about it, but like also like there was no like he seemed comfy in that job and like he was gonna maintain it, and I'm like, no, you wouldn't, though. You just wouldn't.
Well, so I feel like that didn't bother me so much because they kept the aspect of the game of the animatronics like ramping up every night that he was there.
Yeah.
Like the first night, basically nothing. So he was fine. The second night, that's whenever he fell asleep and Foxy poked his arm and Vanessa showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third night is whenever the animatronics showed up and his sister had to come to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was whenever, all of that fell apart. And then the fourth night's whenever, they had their big showdown bullshit thing, whenever he shouldn't have even went there in the first place, but he decided to go take his medication and go there and piss everybody off. And like it kind of sort of progressed in that way, but it did lose that bit of like urgency of like why he, like, I get why he needed the job, because he needed to actually build up that credible like work portfolio so he could get another job. Because it's one of those things to where if a staffing agency has to look at you and be like, there's not really anything I can do for you other than this really shitty job.
Yeah.
Because staffing agencies, they want you to be able to be hired so they can make money off of your ass.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of their whole point on how they're able to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was like it's small issues throughout. I think the movie's fine. It's entertaining. It didn't really scare me, but I tell you, when I was freaked out by it was after I watched the film, I went for a run on the treadmill. and the treadmill was making a little bit of a different noise than normal because my dad had rearranged the garage and swapped the cars over so we could put the van away for the winter and stuff. And the treadmill was making a little bit of a different noise. That scared the shit out of me. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Why is the treadmill making a different noise? That's strange. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
The scariest part about horror things is it making you scared in real life over shit.
Yeah.
Like, I vividly remember, do you know about the Marble Hornet videos?
No.
So it was a home-style like docu-series made by an individual back whenever Slender Man was huge.
Mm.
And there was one night where and now granted, the Marble Hornet videos are incredibly fucking well done.
Mm.
Like for it to be a YouTube series made by like one or two people, it's fucking amazing. Like the level of like how it keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time you're watching like 5 to 7 minute videos. And I went on a like ADHD binge of watching those. This is back at the end of high school whenever I was still living with my dad. And I remember taking out the trash one night, or not one night, but the night that I was binging all of these videos. And just the way the office porch light cast a shadow off of the tree. And I didn't notice it until my back was turned and I was walking towards the dumpster. And the dumpster was like a good, like 100 feet away. And I just saw the shadow get cast of the tree and like the Slender Man silhouette. And I was like, oh, don't you fucking dare.
Yeah.
Like my heart was ready to leave my fucking chest over that.
No, I'm fully with you on that. It's like, yeah, so that was me today anyways, is I watched the film first thing this morning and then I went for a run after that, and I was especially because like when you're on a treadmill you can't look behind you but the noise was coming from behind me and and I had my headphones in because obviously you're like listening to music, watching videos and shit while you're on a treadmill.
Uh-huh.
I had my headphones in and I was like pulling out an earbud and like trying to look over my shoulder and like pausing my run to like look behind me and be like, it's just a treadmill. Like I know it's just a treadmill. It's just cold outside. It's on a concrete floor. Like, come on. Yeah. Put my headphones in, we'll go running again. And then it like happens again, obviously, because it's the treadmill. So as soon as I press go, it's gonna make the noise. Obviously. And as much as you're like logically telling yourself like, no, it's just this, like that's what it is, doesn't matter. Like, nope. Yeah.
Once your brain has it set in like that fight or flight mode, it's there. There's nothing you can do about it at that point.
Yeah. Especially when you're running, but you're not going anywhere.
Yep. God, the brain is such a silly, silly fucking organ, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I've fallen down a rabbit hole recently of like mountain disasters, like people that are like climbing to the top of stupidly high mountains and then dying, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so scary. I can't believe those people are doing that. And now I'm like, oh, a stair. I can't breathe. There's no oxygen. It's fucking dumb. Like,
oh no, if I fall down this one stair, it is the equivalent of falling down Everest. Oh no.
Oh no. I live at like 3,000 meters above, I don't know how, 1,000, how far above sea level am I? Like 1,500? And they're like 8,000 meters above sea level. There is no oxygen. It's only like 5 times where I'm at. I'm curious about my elevation.
I was gonna say, it would be one thing too if like you watch those videos before you go skiing. That would be terrifying.
Let's see what the elevation is. 1,045 meters.
Okay, you know what? You've piqued my interest too. Now I'm gonna go look up my
approximately. Well, that's like the nearest big city.
860.
Ha! I am about 200 meters higher than you. Ha! I'm taller than you.
Ha 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 ha. Oh. You know what? It's okay. It's the only time you'll ever be looking down on me, so I'll allow
it. Considering I was born at sea level, that's pretty high.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe it's moving to Alberta. That's just why you made it to as tall as you did. If you had been still back in England, you'd be closer to the equator, so you'd have been much shorter.
I was closest to the equator in Toronto. Toronto is lower than England.
Toronto's also on the lake, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, like Ontario.
Ontario.
Oh,
what the hell?
What the hell? Like Ontario? No.
I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't do geometry.
Nor do I. So that is the end of math.
Yeah, there's our weekly math segment. Do.
Math. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. Okay. I don't know anything else to say on the
film was good.
Yeah. Watch it. It's fun.
It was enjoyable. Yeah.
Don't show it to kids, even though I would absolutely watch the shit out of it when I was a kid.
Oh, I 100% also would have watched the shit out of it as a kid because, again, I couldn't be stopped. You give me horror things, I watch it. Like, I remember the night terrors I had over that motherfucking moon from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
I didn't like... I had a friend that didn't like the Snow White Witch. My brother didn't like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone because of Fluffy. I don't remember.
Fluffy was adorable.
When you played music. Other than that, it was Cerberus. I don't remember what my thing was when I was a kid. I used to not like toilets, but that was a whole separate thing. Yeah, I don't think I had any like media fears. Mine were like stupid pieces of household equipment fears.
Oh no, it's one of those things for me. Like, media never bothered me. It was just my brain after the fact with nightmares. Like, I got an adrenaline rush from, playing and watching that shit. Like, I enjoyed that like heightened sense of being on edge. And then afterwards I crash. Like, I never crashed harder after streaming than whenever I'd play something like Visage, to where I would get done and my body would actually relax and then I'd pass the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, I think that night, whenever I had you legitimately worried for my life, whenever I fell asleep during your stream, I think I'd streamed Visage or something that night. And so I got into the stream and I just fucking face planted my keyboard. I was out.
Brad, are you dead? He was just in my chat. I was streaming. He was in my chat. It was one of my mods as well. It was not like a regular chatter, like one of my mods. And then all of a sudden, like chatting normally, and then just keyboard spam. And then nothing. And I'm like, Brad? And like everyone in the chat's like, man, like, where are you? Nothing. I'm like, did he just faceplant the keyboard? And it's like, nothing. And I'm like, Brad. And then I end up like getting really close to the mic and I was like, Brad! And that woke you up. But like, I was like, did Brad fucking die? Like, what just happened? Like...
Oh, it was great. Yeah,
it was like, and it was like 10 minutes as well. Like, we were like, because we were having full discussions. I was streaming normally, and every now and again, I'd be like, Brad, are you awake yet? Like, Brad, where you at? Like, nothing. I'm like, fucking died. Like,
oh,
I was like, who do I contact on Discord? Like, Tree, come pick up Brad.
And that's whenever I was living in Georgia, too. So there was nobody near me within like 3 hours.
I was like, fucking, I'm going to have to get Jen to hop over a state and go find you. Like,
oh, it's great.
Jeez. Yeah.
So much fun. But yeah, do we want to do ratings?
I give it a rating of it's fine.
I was going to say, I'm here with like a 6.
Yeah, 6 is good. It's fine. I'm excited for the second film. I think it'll be very consumable. It's a good horror film to watch on Halloween, around Halloween time. It's probably going to make you reinvested in the games again. it's fine. I loved Corey and MatPat being in it, though. That was sick.
Yeah, it brought my heart so much joy. Like, for one, MatPat, because he's the, FNAF lore guy. And then Corey, because just most wholesome Christian dude on the planet that plays video games and got to be in a video game film. Like, that just brought my heart so much joy.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they managed to sneak in MatPat saying it's just a theory. That was sick.
Yep, like that was good. I like that a lot.
They had to work for it. That script was crunchy, but they got it in there.
Yep. I mean, if anything, I figured with the whole dream theory bit, I figured we might have gotten it there, but nope.
No, just on breakfast and lunch.
Yep. Lunch is the most important meal of the day. Oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're back to regularly scheduled programming next week. I don't remember what we did before Vinland Saga.
I don't either. Enjoy whatever it is. Have fun.
Yeah, enjoy that, and then Vinland Saga, and then we'll be back with a vending machine anime. So yeah.
I think it's Mashal.
Oh, it was Mashal. Yeah, enjoy Mashal next week. But yeah, outside of that, socials, Blues Lavenders, Brad Guerin VO, Brad Carter Gaming, BnB Anime, literally everywhere. Go check us out there. YouTube, website, BnB Anime, you'll find us. It's great. We have things. Yeah. Love you. Bye.
Bye.